Whether it's chat, date or mates, whatever you use a dating app for over a decade, the queer community have been breaking up, hooking up and marrying up, all because of right now culture. And there's one app in particular that has changed the way we do it. As Grindr turned 15 years old this March, coming with it is new wisdom on how we date, the highs and lows of its usage, and of course, the fascination everyone has around our so-called promiscuous community. Despite some controversy, that little demon app has become a vital part of many of our stories, from love to curing loneliness to finding friends. So we're asking the nation, Grindr, where are we now? So, according to the app's About page, since launching in 2009, Grindr has grown into the largest social networking app for gay, bi, trans and queer people. They say that they've got millions of daily users who use their location-based technology in almost every country in every corner of the planet. And they're still evolving. Today, Grindr proudly represents a modern LGBTQ lifestyle that's expanding into new platforms. At Grindr, they've created a safe space where you can discover, navigate, and get 0 feet away from the queer world around you. Keep connecting. And that's quite a pretty nice message, actually. I'm here in the streets of Soho. Some might say that this is the queer capital of the UK, to ask people if they know Grindr and what they think of it. Do you know what Grindr is?
Yes. Yes.
Do you know what Grindr is?
The coffee chain.
No, the app.
It's a dating app for the gay community.
What's your thoughts on Grindr?
Dicey, scary.
It's good at times.
What do you think of Grindr?
Amazing.
I think it can be helpful to kind of bring people together, especially if they feel kind of like isolated.
Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative.
Quick hookup, not usually the most truthful thing in the world.
Who wants to speak to me about Grindr? Grindr? No? For some people, they use Grindr to facilitate an open relationship, and I'm here at the iconic Royal Vauxhall Tavern to talk to Paul Moore, a comedian who does just that. Paul, thank you so much for joining me to talk about Grindr. What's your experience of Grindr?
So I first downloaded Grindr before I was even out. Yeah, I remember I was like a teenager. My heart was like beating out of my chest. Like, it was so scary, so exciting. All these gays there. I was like, oh, okay. And I found this guy who lived like 2 streets away, and 15 years later, we're still mates.
Mates and more.
Mates and more. Mates in the gay sense. Well, that's amazing, right? You know, I would never have found him if I hadn't logged into Grindr that day.
Obviously, we're celebrating 15 years of Grindr.
Yeah.
Can you believe it's been 15
it's crazy.
years? I mean,
I feel so old.
Do you think the app's changed over that time on how it's been used?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, everyone talks about it, especially the straights. They talk about it as a hookup app. It's not just a hookup app, it's the gay app. It's everything. It's like, if you want to find a gay, you find them on Grindr. Where else are they going to be?
You are in a relationship, which is also an open relationship. Tell me a little bit about, before being in the relationship, how you sort of use the app versus now.
So before I was in a relationship, I used Grindr much like any other dating app. You know, the gays invented the dating app, basically, let's be real. I've now been with my boyfriend for 6 years, which is mad.
Congratulations.
Thank you. In gay years, that's
a lifetime.
Yeah. And I think our kind of, the way we see it is that every relationship should be built on rules. And I think you see that a lot more in queer relationships because you're already doing something different. You're already pissing off your gran, why not piss him off a bit more? The terms by which we live are that we will get with other people, but we'll always do it together. So if you were building a Grindr profile for us, it would say something like, we play together, I think is like the technical Grindr term.
Yeah. So do you have a joint profile?
Well, that is one thing that you can't do on Grindr. So we each have our own profile, but obviously because it's based on distance, isn't it? So I suspect for most people, it's like, there's me, there's my boyfriend.
You're on the grid together.
Yeah, exactly. And we're together in all of our pictures and that kind of thing as well. The way it works for us is we'll be sitting at home on the sofa, and I'll be like, oh, what do you think of this guy? And he'll be like, nah, sorry, I don't fancy him. And then he'll be like, oh, what about, I've been talking to this guy, what do you think about him? And I'll say yes, because I'm not picky.
Okay, I get the picture. So you're using it very much together. So you have that rule of, obviously, we're on this app, we've agreed to be on this app, we've agreed to be in this open relationship, this works for us. And you say you have rules, like what are your rules?
Oh my God, it took us half a decade to like refine this, and now we're really happy with it. So the rules are, you can snog anyone, doesn't really count. Anything beyond that, we both have to be there and we both have to be keen, obviously. And that works really well for us. Like, you know, I think people often look at our kind of relationship and they're like, oh, that's kind of, that's a slightly lesser relationship. Nah, like, that's one of my favorite things about our relationship. That makes me love him more. Like,
oh, that's nice. Because I think you're right. I think a lot of people, there's so much judgment in our community anyway, and outside of it. We have a lot to deal with. But obviously, open relationships have become a thing that a lot more people are doing, a lot more people are speaking about. Even straights. But it was a thing that perhaps was going on, but we didn't talk about it as much. But it's very much at the forefront. Lots of people are doing it. I go on Grindr and I see lots of couples on there. So obviously you're using it for the open relationship, but do you receive negativity? Because we're quite a judgmental community inside and out, but are you getting that?
occasionally on the app, you'll just be like, you'll get someone who's like, I don't get with couples. And oh my God, that is so fair enough. Like that is can of worms right there, especially, you know, if it's a couple that haven't agreed their terms carefully or don't know what they've agreed to. And so I totally respect that. In terms of outside the app, do we get judgment? I think we get surprise, but these days you tell a straight person and they're just like, gays be gaying, you know?
There is that sort of thing, and it links to actually using Grindr though, because a lot of people think that you're just promiscuous if you're using the app, but like we've discussed, obviously you use it for friendships, for travel, for other things. Do you think that that is feeding into, obviously, having an open relationship, using the app, that promiscuous sort of vibe people have on us?
I think if anything, it's doing the opposite, you know? I think by using the app for other things, and we should be doing that louder, we're actually proving that there's more to it. There's a community behind that app. You know, I'm here today because I think it's a good app. Like it's good for our community. I mean, it's, you know, for its faults, how lucky are we to have something in our pocket where we can just plug into our community? Even when I wasn't in an open relationship, I still had Grindr on my phone because it's helpful for navigating queer life.
Grindr on the whole, obviously it gets a lot of bad press, it gets lots of negativity, and there are reasons obviously for that, and there are things have happened, obviously scenarios, it's not always the safest place, but they're trying to obviously cultivate this safe community and having a safe experience online. How is Grindr positive for you? Like what do you love about the app? I mean, I know you've referenced a couple of things, but why is it such a positive place?
You can be anywhere, you can come to the other side of London and you're like, where are my gays at? And like, if they're on the app, by definition, they're looking for something. Who knows what?
We're all looking for something.
We're all looking for something. The ones who say they're looking for networking, I mean...
Have you seen my profile?
And I think that even just knowing there are gays around you, there's something really nice about that. Like, there's 100 gays within half a mile of me. That's cool. Like 100 years ago, imagine how much more alone you might have felt if you were just like stuck in some bit of London being like, I must be by myself here.
I think that's so, for someone who I didn't always live in London and I came to London, and I think the app really facilitated that sort of, okay, who's in my area? Like, because London friends, they're like dotted here, there and everywhere. And to know that there's people in my area, yes, of course, we use the app for very various reasons. Obviously, you use it for your open relationship, but you use it for travel and other things as well. I think it's such a positive thing to have that sort of app in our pocket that just shows and makes you feel more comfortable or safe or whatever. This is gonna be a hard one, but do you have a favourite Grindr experience? Are there any that stand out?
For sure. We were in Costa Rica. I'd got given this leaflet for a party. I'd been chatting to this guy on Grindr. I sent him a picture of the leaflet. I was like, hey, like, this looks fun. Would you recommend it? And he messaged back like, I wouldn't go there. That's like a ploy to mug tourists. I never met this guy. We were never gonna meet up. He wasn't even in the area, but he was ready to help out another gay guy, just like be like, hey, watch out there.
Yeah.
That's community, right?
is
That's
community.
amazing.
It's community spirit. That's a lovely story.
So I'll always be thankful to him, and you know, hopefully I'll pay it on one day. Right? I guess another story would be, oh my God, they're not PG. They're so not PG.
You had fun. Another story would be, you had fun.
No, there's just something really nice about having someone over or going to someone's place, you have a drink, and you're like, this is gonna be nice. This seems like a nice person.
What would be your advice to other people who perhaps are about to go open or open using Grindr? Is there any like sort of advice you'd share on using the app as an open relationship?
Yeah, definitely. I think you need to be really explicit in what the situation is. It's not fair on that other person if they're like, you know, am I talking to one person or two people here? What are the rules here? Like you should make it clear what they're entering into. And you should also make it clear that like that conversation has been had and they're not going to be walking into this total storm of like someone suddenly walking out or something like, I cannot think of anything more awkward.
So if you could say one top tip to couples in an open relationship while using Grindr, what would it be?
Decide what you want before you get on the app. And also save yourself some time, have a chat about what the other person is looking for. Because I was like pitching all these daddies and they got nowed.
What's wrong with a daddy?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
But everyone has their type, don't they?
Absolutely. Is that hard though, as a couple then, like to navigate that in an open relationship, to like know, obviously, you know your separate types, but...
I mean, he's very lucky because I'm absolutely not picky. But yeah, I can imagine if you both have very strong views, then... and I mean, we also, you know, we try not to be totally shallow. So, you know, if someone is great vibes, like that's also a great reason to meet someone as well.
Do you think you'll continue to be in an open relationship, or will you just continue to do it as long as it works?
I can't picture myself being in any other kind of relationship. If I wasn't in a slightly open relationship, I don't think that would be the relationship for me.
Paul, it's been fascinating to hear about your open relationship and how you use the app on Grindr. Thank you so much for chatting to me.
Let's do it again in 15 years' time.
Yes, I'm up for it. Let's do it, high five. Of course, everyone's experience on Grindr is completely different. So today, I'm sitting down with Dev, a performance artist from London, to see what he thinks of the app. Thank you so much for sitting and chatting about Grindr, how controversial. Yeah. For people that don't know you, who are you, what do you do?
I'm Diva D. I am a performance artist, a cabaret performer, host, as well as a communications manager as well, so a bit of everything.
Obviously we're talking about Grindr, quite a controversial app to some, to others it's their lifeline, and they use it in a variety of ways. What's your relationship with Grindr?
It's changed over time. So I grew up in Leicester. When it first came out, I was underage, right? And I downloaded it because I was like, this is my way to connect with like other gay people at the time. And I didn't really use it to meet up with people. I just used it to see what the community was like. I didn't really understand it myself. And then as I grew older and used it in the way that it was intended for, kind of that changed my like usage and perception of it as well. So definitely at uni as well, I wasn't necessarily out. I wasn't ready to be out in that way. So it really helped me make friends, but also like really helped with some of the other experiences you get from the app as well. Now it's changed a lot more. I travel a lot and I tend to use it when I'm in different cities or countries to find out what's going on, who's there. Like, depends how I feel after a gig as well, so yeah.
I love that you say how you feel as well. It sounds like a couple of moments in what you just said, you said help, and you've used it as sort of a lifeline and stuff. And a lot of people are describing, like, obviously this app comes with some negativity, but there are so many positives. Do you think that it's, because a lot of people have argued that we need this app, like it's an app that has been around for 15 years now. For you, do you feel like you need it? And do you feel like it's an app that you need in your life?
Again, I think it's all contextual. I think some people do. Me personally, I don't need it. And I've got to a stage now where I will delete it for months at a time, just because I realise that I'm either like, I use it like Instagram, I'm doom scrolling on there. And that for me is a bit weird, because it's not posts, it's not social context, it's people's profiles. So I use it very intentionally, and I'm very clear about my intent on the app. What I have found is that there are a lot of people on the app who don't have that, and they don't have that intent. And I think that's where you get a bit of the negativity, because actually people aren't very clear. I also think as well, it's made sex very accessible to a lot of people, but it's also normalized a lot of things which weren't necessarily normalized before, i.e. like access to sex in such a quick way, or talking about things in such a free and open manner, even stuff like unsolicited pictures, or how you speak to people, or sometimes on the app I think it's how you don't speak to people. This whole no answer is an answer mentality, which then kind of transcends into like the real world. So yeah, I think it's definitely like, for some people it's needed, like small communities, finding people, exploring kind of your sexuality or like your sexual interests, it's really handy. But for others, I think it's okay to take a break from it sometimes and revisit it if you want to.
What have you experienced on the app? Have you ever experienced any sort of rudeness or anything that has been sort of trolling or anything like that?
All the time, I'm not gonna lie. It's one of the reasons I actually delete it quite a lot. There was a period of time where I had a faceless profile, because actually the experiences I'd had in like, I'd say the months, but also years before, had actually been so negative. So for me, I'm a burlesque performer, so I like to take my clothes off. I'm very confident about my body now and showcasing it and how it looks. And actually I'd go onto the app, sometimes after a show, and I'd feel so good about myself, and I'd just be like treated with such disrespect from people who I actually hadn't engaged with. So they were proactively trolling me. I've like experienced,
So they were coming at you?
They were coming at me. I've experienced racism, like I've experienced just like general nastiness. And I think sometimes, like, I will say as well, there's been those moments like when you're literally doom scrolling on there and you're chatting to people with no intention of doing anything with them. We've all been guilty of that.
Yep.
But then I would say, like, sometimes there are people who are on there to play a game and it's a power trip for them because it's an app.
Yeah.
It's not real life. Whereas actually if you met them in real life, it'd be different. I would say my experience is not just like typical to me. There's like different communities, everyone experiences different things. I would say there is a stereotype of beauty and attractiveness in society. And for me, I really don't fit into those stereotypical norms. And I feel that sometimes Grindr and the culture within Grindr perpetuates that stereotypical attractive kind of typography, to say. And if you don't fit that, you are more susceptible to getting abuse or getting nasty comments on the app. So it is really interesting. I will say I've actually experienced more racism on Grindr than I have in real life.
Which is shocking because, like you say, a lot of people are coming proactively at you. This isn't even you sort of reaching out to people. No. This isn't responses and stuff. These are people unprovoked, like, and they're coming at you, which is disgusting, first of all.
There was a time, I want to say, maybe like 10 years ago, where there was a phrase, no femmes, no fats, no Asians. And it was plastered across every single like Grindr profile. Yeah. And to be someone who was kind of femme, like is fat, is Asian, my self-esteem took a real big hit around then because I actually just felt so ugly. Yeah. And I felt so ugly for years because you do base your validation on what people think and people say. And
Absolutely.
If people are putting that out there into the world, you automatically think, God, I don't fit this. I must be ugly.
Here's a question then, because obviously there are, like you say, so many benefits of having this app, and it's like I say, it's been 15 years. What can we do to better use Grindr and to learn how to not do this? Is it to change profiles? Is it to change the way we're thinking? Or is it just like making more people aware and be kinder?
I think it's less about being kind, it's about your intentions. And for me, I would just appreciate people being really upfront with their intentions and being confident in what they want. And actually, then people have an understanding of kind of what they're engaging with. But I also understand that's probably not something that's going to change overnight, right? So I think with Grindr as well, there just needs to be a bit more like stringent support. It's quite difficult sometimes when you've reported a profile like for something quite serious, and then like 2-3 weeks later you see it back up, and it's not a new profile that's been created, it's the same one. And for me that's quite a difficult thing to manage because it doesn't feel like a safe space sometimes. So Grindr itself, I think, is a platform, it's an enabler. For the real issue sometimes is the people using it, so the people behind it, and that's kind of what needs to change a little bit.
So for someone who's experienced abuse, the good side of Grindr, and for me, what you do, how you perform is so, the body positivity, the fact that you're just being yourself, I think is so encouraging. It makes me feel happy. Like what you're doing is fantastic. What would be your tip for someone using Grindr, perhaps is in a similar position to you, like, and how you feel on it? Like, what would your tip be?
I think protect yourself online, and I say that in the broadest sense. So make sure you are very intentional about how you're using it, but also make sure that you're not putting yourself in situations where you might possibly get become into harm's way, like either like physically, mentally, digitally, whatever. And then I'd also say, if people are being like horrible or just you sense a vibe, remove yourself from that conversation straight away. That's actually been one of the best things I've done. I used to retaliate and come back to people. I think sometimes you just, when you know, and actually save your energy for the people that want it. And that's not to say that you have to stand down in every occasion. I definitely still like take on people, especially when I'm hangry. But
who doesn't?
Who doesn't? I would just say, if you come into that, remove yourself straight away. You don't need that in your life. You don't need to think about that and dwell on that. Just block and delete. So
despite a lot of the negatives that you've personally experienced, there's clearly some benefits to having the app, and we're celebrating 15 years, and where are we now? But I want to ask you, why is Grindr important to you?
Grindr is important to me because it's community, it's access to community and to exploration, but also it's all about freedom and just being kind of true to yourself in different ways.
I think sometimes, I don't know if this is a controversial opinion, but I think sometimes the heterosexual community is jealous of the app a little bit.
100%. The amount of times I talk to some of my girlfriends about Grindr or like just similar apps as well, and they say, oh my God, you put it so easy. Or like, they used to slut shame me quite a lot, regardless of how many encounters I'd have on there. And they say, oh, it's so easy. And I used to say to them, you know what, it's not easy. Like, but actually, it's just a lot more freer, and we've set expectations and we set intentions. We're not going along a binary route. And they get it now and they understand it. And it's not, for some people, it's not just a hookup app, right? It means so much more. But I do get why heterosexual people might be a bit more jealous, because I find sometimes they're a lot more conservative. They have this certain route that they follow throughout life. Whereas for us as queer people, as gay people, we don't necessarily have that. And Grindr is like a platform that has driven that kind of mentality as well, whereby a lot of the community-based activities that we used to do, and some of the historical parts of kind of who we are as queer people, especially around sex and exploration, Grindr has really taken and made more accessible to people who don't have access to that history, but also like just allows them to be a bit more open-minded and see what works for them.
I think that's what it's doing as well. Like,
Yeah.
I've been asking everyone, like, where are we now? It's been 15 years. And I think it's made us more progressive, more open-minded, maybe more together as a community.
Maybe.
Always. We'll come back to that
Together in certain ways, but not in others.
one. Together in naked ways.
Yeah, probably.
Thank you so much.
No,
It's been
thank
such
you.
a pleasure to chat to you, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
As we know, Grindr is used across the globe, and even more so perhaps when you're solo traveling. I'm here in the beautiful Miami Beach, using the app to connect with people, to find recommendations, and to feel safe and secure in an unfamiliar place. A friend of mine, Callum, is kindly going to share some of his advice while using the app whilst traveling.
I use Grindr all the time when I travel. Yes, to meet cute boys and have romances, but also as a tool to tap into local LGBT+ communities, especially in places where it might not be as accepted. So, for instance, I was recently in Shanghai, and when trying to research local gay bars and gay nights, queer nights, I found it really difficult to find up-to-date information because often bars are shut down, club nights close, new places open. So I turned to Grindr to meet some local people who were able to give me some information, and then I already had some friends when I went out. So yes, Grindr is amazing for hookups and meeting guys, but there are so many other ways you can use it as well.
The media is such a powerful influence inside and outside the community, so today I'm sitting down with Connor Clark, content editor at Gaystar News. Connor, thank you so much for joining me.
No problem, thanks for having me.
So Connor, tell me a little bit about what you do.
So I am a journalist. I currently work for Gaystar News. I've been in queer media for around 5 years, working for places like Gay Times and QX Magazine, and I've also worked for the likes of LBC as a producer, so quite a bit of media experience.
You've done a lot, And obviously you work now at Gaystar News, and today we're talking about Grindr. What's your personal experience of Grindr?
My personal experience of Grindr is I've used it professionally and personally. I think professionally, it's a really, really powerful tool that can connect you to different people, be it interviewees or maybe people in an area that you're not familiar with who might be able to give you insight into something. Certainly when I've done various Pride celebrations around the world, it's been really powerful to get an understanding of where to go and who to speak to. Like, for example, when we were in Miami Pride, it was right after the drag bans had been introduced in Florida, and I wanted to speak to some local queens there. And it's actually quite hard to find some of those online because a lot of them maybe don't have big social media presences. And so what Grindr's really great for is messaging a few of the people that live there and just saying, hey, I'm needing to speak to a few drag queens in the area. Who do you know? And you get back a long list, and it just...
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a great way of using it. You must have come across, obviously, within the content you've done or other content, Grindr and Grindr stories. How does Grindr play out in the media?
I think Grindr is often given quite a bad stigma in the sense of I think there's still a lot of shame around sex in the community especially, and because Grindr promotes healthy sex lives for the most part, I think there is still a lot of internalized shame that a lot of people carry with having Grindr, and I think that does translate especially in queer media in terms of people often focus on the negative stories and the more clickbaity stories, like when something goes wrong with Grindr, as opposed to focusing on maybe the positives that come from it, such as friendships, community, especially when you're traveling or if you're going to a new place. So I do think it gets quite a bad rep in the media. Do I think that's necessarily fair? No.
That's good, yeah. I agree. I think that the stories that I sort of see and that we focus on naturally are the sort of the bad stuff and obviously things going wrong. I think Grindr does have that place, obviously, that it supports the community. Do you think that we could be sort of gentler on them and think about like the positives and share some positive stories?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a big space for the positive stories from Grindr to be told. I don't think those are being told enough. I think when you look at the positives of Grindr as an app and maybe as the team behind it, there's a lot of effort to safeguard users. There's a lot of effort to make sure users can actually get what they want from it, such as filters. You can change your location on it to see who's maybe around ahead of going somewhere. So they're definitely thinking of how they can give people the best opportunity to use it for what they want to. But I think because the bad stories are easy, it's easier to sell fear and danger than it is to sell community and unity. And so Grindr, unfortunately, is sort of weaponized as part of that in a lot of ways because people focus on the hookup side, they focus on when something goes wrong, as opposed to I assume millions of people who will say that they've made a good friend from it or met a partner from it, or even just, gone somewhere and met someone new once and never seen them again, but had a really positive experience with them.
I guess like that's really interesting to use the word weaponized, because I think that's a lot of the time what we're doing with, obviously, we throw sort of Grindr around as a bit of a negative, even not just the media, but even in conversation, like, oh, you're on Grindr, it's a little bit judgmental. Why do you think we are so judgmental of this app?
I think a lot of it is linked to gay shame, not to make it a bigger thing, but I think ultimately queer sex and gay sex in particular has been stigmatized for a really, really long time. And we're only really seeing within the community itself that coming to an end now-ish. And I even say that with a very much tentative, I'm not sure that it is ending, but Grindr I think is inherently part of that, because Grindr is, the idea that you would want to go and hook up with someone that you've maybe never met is something that has gone on for the whole of time. But the accessibility that Grindr has given to it is what's changed. And so I think the reason Grindr's given that stigma and the reason it's treated as this sort of dirty thing by some people is because maybe they have their own shame as to how they approach sex. And, you know, if you are someone that's quite, what's the word? Introverted maybe when it comes to sex, I think it's really hard to fathom the idea that other people might be using Grindr to go either for a hookup or to meet someone for a date that they've never met, or to just meet a new friend, or even network for work. And so I think it's given that stigma because of what surrounds the shame of being gay.
I think also it's very much like it's so easy to judge and to hide behind profiles. And Grindr sort of facilitates this in a way, because I mean, people get trolled, obviously people have fake profiles, catfish profiles, blank profiles, as we've discussed before. A lot of people call it a hookup app, but a lot of people are using it for business, for finding friends, like.
I think the thing to remember about Grindr is no different to any other app in the sense that users can use it for what they want, right? So when people do want to say, oh, it's a hookup app, for example, you can use social media platforms as a hookup app. I know a lot of people that go on Instagram and meet their new boyfriend or the next person they're going to be with.
Slide into that DM.
And we make jokes about that. And it's interesting because you made that joke just now, but actually a lot of people wouldn't make that joke about Grindr. I'm not saying about you, but in general, I think that joke about Grindr isn't there. And so I wouldn't say there are right reasons to use it. I think if you're using it for whatever you want it to use for, as long as it's not hurting anyone and it's consensual, I don't see the issue with it. I'm a big believer in the fact that if there's something that's specifically for LGBTQ plus people, why is that a bad thing? I think there's never going to be, in my opinion, you just can't have enough stuff that's tailored solely to the community. And so Grindr is a great example of that, where, as you mentioned, it connects people that just wouldn't have met. And that's actually really important, because we're not just talking about a friend you wouldn't have met, but then you've got hundreds of other gay friends you can go out with. We're talking about people who maybe would have never met another gay person in their lifetime, potentially. If you're someone that's growing up in, you know, rural somewhere, where there's maybe a population of 100 people in your town or something like that, yeah, Grindr's a lot more powerful than people give it credit for. And so when we focus on the negatives of it, I understand why, I do get it. There are negatives, just like there are with every app, but it's also really pivotal for a lot of people, and actually probably, dare I go as far to say it, saves a lot of people in many ways, because a lot of people need that lifeline of someone else who knows what they're going through, especially the younger people who might be on it. So yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a right way to use Grindr. I think it's just about how people use it, and I think there's a lack of understanding that people use it for this wide breadth of reasons.
And Connor, obviously you work and have worked within queer media, and I've been so lucky to read and obviously react to some of the incredible stories you've done, which are incredible.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
That's all right, you can laugh at your success.
Me laughing at my own compliment, but yeah, go on.
Why is it important that for you, from a queer media point of view, you are telling these stories and giving a balanced view?
I think in the bigger networks and bigger channels, LGBT stories are really, really undertold, or they focus on A, something that's either not true, or B, something that's just completely blown out of proportion and not actually representative of the community. You know, if you look at the bigger outlets and search LGBT, good luck finding a positive story. They will be there, buried in there somewhere, but for the most part, it's got a negative spin. So the reason that I like to platform the kind of stories you're discussing is because I think the community needs to see them. I think the community needs hope and needs to remember that there are a lot of people fighting the good fight. And even if they're not fighting a fight, there are people just doing good things that we should shout about, be that charities, activists, celebrities even, whatever. And I think the community doesn't hear enough of that. And I think even within queer media, we see a lot of publications turning away from political coverage. We see a lot of publications turning away from quote unquote serious coverage about things like conversion therapy, trans rights. because it's easier to sell stories about celebrities and film and TV, which I think there's space for all of it. And that's really at Gay Star News what we're trying to do, is create a place where all of these things can coexist. Because listen, I want to read about Drag Race, but I do also want to read about the state of the political climate in the UK for gay people, for trans people, for bi people, etc. So I guess the reason I do what I do is trying to just fill the gap that I see in the market, as it were, because I think we're guilty of it even in queer media, of sometimes shying away from the stories that need to be told and having the harder conversations.
Why is Grindr important to you, do you think?
The main function I've used Grindr for is kind of what we were discussed, but when I used to, for example, go abroad for work trips and stuff, it was a really, really powerful tool of meeting like interviewees or people in the area who might know things. Like I remember when I did, we went to Europride in Malta last year, and I don't know anyone in Malta. I've never been to Malta. I didn't have any clue where like the LGBTQ plus scene was, nightlife was. Turns out there isn't much of it, but I digress. But I found that out via Grindr, is messaging sort of locals in the area and saying, where can I go out tonight, blah, blah, blah. And those are people I never spoke to again and will probably never meet. But I'd say it's really powerful for that. It's powerful as a way to get insight into communities that you're not part of. I think it's really powerful as a journalistic tool to find interviewees and to maybe even just get a bit of an understanding of something that you're writing about or working on that you don't necessarily know about. And I think it's also just a really good way of, like, when you're out and about, seeing who's there.
So Connor, I'm asking everyone, what is their #1 tip when using Grindr?
I would say my #1 tip for people using Grindr is to really know what they want from the app, because it's an app that has so many possibilities and features that the best thing you can do is really know what you want from it in order to get that. And I think also to just remember that you should really treat people on there how you want to be treated, because there is a lot of nastiness out there on Grindr and beyond that we just can't control. But the way you can actually control that is by, treating people how you want to be treated.
Obviously it's been 15 years since Grindr, which is incredible. Where was I 15 years ago? We're asking people, where can it go? What's next?
I think Grindr will always have a prominent place in our community as long as social media exists. Obviously we're seeing a lot of changes with technology that goes beyond Grindr, so who knows how that could affect it, but kind of putting that to one side for a second, I think there's always room for it to grow. I mean, look at it 15 years ago. 15 years ago, if I remember correctly, you could only block like 3 accounts a day or something.
Oh, wow.
And like that's, and I remember those days. And so maybe I've been using it longer than 5 years, but certainly when it comes to things like travel, and certainly when it comes to things like, as I've mentioned, going to various prides or other queer events that exist, I think it's so important and such a powerful tool that does have a future, because it allows people to connect with others that they may never have met otherwise.
And obviously it's also an app for everyone. Like there's no sort of, we're not trying to pigeonhole. Obviously it's used by gay and bisexual people, trans people, and it should be a safe space for everyone. And I think that's the main thing I'm taking away from you.
Yeah, I think it should be a safe space. That's not to say that I think, like I definitely think communities like the lesbian community, for example, don't have enough. And so while Grindr is a solution to some of the problems, it's not a solution to all of them. And I think the LGBTQ plus community is very intersectional and is made up of a really broad array of identities and people. And so I would love to see maybe that be its next expansion, is maybe a way where it can develop its tools for those other communities that maybe it doesn't serve as well, be that in a different app or however they want to do it, I don't know. But that's something I think we could definitely see for the future, is something more tailored to those communities.
That's actually a great idea. Grindr, different versions for different people.
Well, you heard it here first. If they take it,
there you go,
fine.
a bit of copyright there. Connor, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
No worries.
It's been really great. Our community is a place for all of our letters, so I sat down with Jackson King, a trans man who uses Grindr for a multitude of reasons. Today I'm joined with Jackson, a writer. Jackson, thank you so much for chatting to me. How are you doing?
A pleasure. Yeah, I'm all right. It's a hot day, and hopefully we're going to get into some hot topics.
For people that aren't aware of who you are, what do you do? What you're a writer. What do you write about?
Yeah, I do a few different things. So I've written journalistically for outlets like The Guardian, The iPaper, Pink News, often kind of talking about or writing from the lens of being a queer black trans guy, and kind of sharing some of those experiences. I also write trans erotica, and I set up a magazine for like queer trans men called Irresistible Damage, which is just kind of a space for us to have kind of helpful, interesting community conversations around our specific experiences as queer trans guys. And I'm also working on a novel at the moment. So yeah, a few different things.
What's it like to be a trans man on Grindr? Is it a safe space? Is it like, do you fall victim to abuse? Like, what sort of place is it for a trans man, would you say?
Oh, I mean, I'm not sure that Grindr is a safe space for anyone, I'll have to say. And, you know, I have had very occasional, very rare instances of maybe like transphobic abuse. But, you know, for the most part, I think my experience on there probably aligns with a lot of other people's, in the sense that, you know, you get some people who message you and are maybe a bit curt, a bit direct, a bit blunt, a bit rude. You get other people who you end up having, you know, a lovely conversation with, and, you know, maybe end up developing a friendship with, or a sort of friendship with benefits with. But, you know, as to the specifics, I think obviously for a lot of trans people on the app, also black people on the app, you know, fetishization is something people speak about a lot, and is, you know, is a huge issue. I think it is complicated in that, you know, I was talking about my journey earlier. I think sort of when I first got onto Grindr, there was stuff that I very much interpreted as like, oh my god, I'm being fetishized, which now I wouldn't, in the same way. I think there's just there are sort of like scripts and like ways of speaking that gay men have among each other that I think are kind of like baseline very fetishistic anyway. But I just think it's kind of interesting to ask, what do we mean when we talk about fetish? And like, you know, is it a feeling of like discomfort in a conversation? Is it a feeling of, you know, someone making assumptions about you and what you might want and what you might desire based on the fact that you are trans or black? Which I did have one of those recently. I feel like I can't say many of the words, but let's just say there was a very, I think, well-rehearsed chaser daddy who kind of slid into the DM saying he's ready to take that FTM, female to male. And so I think I think for a lot of people, people have different levels of comfort with different kinds of language as well. So I feel like this isn't a very it's not a very specific answer, but I like to sort of look at the complexity and the nuance to this as well.
Where are you now with the app? Like, are you at a comfortable place? Do you use the app? Do you like it?
I would say mixed, to be honest. I don't use it a lot. I think because I'm aware of the other ways that, you know, you can find people to have a good time with. And I think also just kind of being more immersed in queer and trans community, I think it feels easier to find rewarding connections without needing to go through an app like Grindr. So I don't use it lots, but, you know, sometimes it does surprise you. You open it up, you never know who might pop up. So I kind of temper my use of it deliberately, because I think, I think kind of overuse of it would probably have an impact on my sense of self-esteem. So for that reason, and I think that's also just kind of the ways in which we need to engage with social media in general, I think, or kind of apps, is kind of reflecting on what kind of impact is this having on me? Is this, you know, is it taking more from me than it's giving? And I think it's kind of keeping that balance.
For anyone who might be trans and find themselves on this app, do you have any advice for them?
First and foremost, don't let it influence kind of how you see yourself. I think secondly, have fun. I think there's opportunities out there for you to have a good time. There's also probably opportunities out there for you to have a less good time. Some of the exploration of that and the journey of that, I think, is kind of an integral part of the sort of queer experience in a way. It's kind of finding your way through community. I think, there's some things around, safety and like sort of trusting your gut. I think don't push yourself to do anything that you don't feel comfortable with, or to meet anyone that you don't feel sort of okay about, just because you think you should be having X kinds of experiences.
If you had to say one thing you love about Grindr, what would it be?
Okay, one thing that I love about Grindr is if you want it, it's there. And it's HOTTOGO, hot to go. And I think the idea of those kinds of experiences on demand, digitally, and the ease and the access, I think that is both the strength. I think that is probably the strength of Grindr, actually.
Would you say that for you, like, you're glad that Grindr is here?
Oh, that's it's hard to say, because I haven't lived in a world without it, really. It kind of feels so ubiquitous. It's like oxygen. It's like it's just always been there, at least since I've kind of been out and on the scene. Am I glad? I guess I'm glad for the experiences that it's allowed me to have.
Same. You don't have to answer this, but Grindr, have you been on it today?
Yes.
Love that. And what a perfect way to end. Jackson, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting to me about 15 years of Grindr.
You're so welcome. And yeah, thank you.
So we're asking the nation, Grindr, where are we now? What is a good thing about Grindr?
So I think when I moved here, so I'm also an immigrant, so I moved here initially around 12 years ago. So at that time it was pretty good, because I did make a lot of friends through that.
I mean, it is good for travel, actually, if you're traveling on your own.
Are you here visiting?
I am.
Okay, and will you be using the app while you're here?
Possibly.
Nice, well, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Like, do you think there are some benefits to having it?
Yeah, certainly. I think I know people who have used it in new cities to kind of find friends. I think it just means you have to keep quite clear boundaries.
I explored a lot through Grindr. It helped me a lot, especially when I was younger.
Oh wow, how did it help?
Well, I was from quite a small kind of town, so, compared to something like London, I was from like North Birmingham, so it did really help kind of open my mind to different things, and especially the gay community.
Because make the people feel special, feel present, feel the people to be someone that in some situations they are not able to.
I guess the purpose of it is to connect two people or more, and that's what it does. So I think it's a benefit for some people.
It's been 15 years since the launch of the app. Do you think Grindr's here to stay?
Definitely. I think it could definitely do with some updates.
I think there's an appetite for it. There's definitely an appetite for it. So I'm pretty sure, I think it might evolve, but it definitely feels like it's here to stay.
I don't see it being phased out unless something else comes in.
I don't think there's any stopping Grindr.
So that's what a snapshot of Soho think of Grindr, an app that's clearly here to stay. Anything to add? Hot stuff? I don't think so. 15 years of importance, matchmaking, and helping the community. Whatever your opinion of the app, they've been there through the highs and the lows. Grindr, we thank you, and thank you for listening.